Welcome to the ITSM Spectrum podcast, brought to you by Purple Griffon, experts in ITSM training and consultancy. This is a podcast for anyone working in an IT or project-based role, or those who aspire to enter the industry. If you're looking to further your career or upskill your existing team, or simply want to learn more about topics in your field of interest, then settle in and enjoy. Thanks for joining.
Hi and welcome back to the ITSM Spectrum, episode 2. For those of you that haven't heard episode 1, we had a really great chat with Dr. Andy Lowe on artificial intelligence. Our CEO Steve is co-hosting this episode with us. He'll be a permanent fixture throughout.
Thanks, Ben. As Ben said, I'm the CEO of Purple Griffon, lead trainer. Most of the courses we deliver, I have delivered at some point over the years. And I think I hold about 60 certifications at the moment. So I'm trying to back off the training a little bit and hand over to the next generation. But I'm still here as a sort of fountain of knowledge regarding a lot of the methodologies, technologies, techniques we employ. So I think in this podcast, we were looking to cover the latest version of PRINCE2, which is PRINCE2 7th edition. And I remember all of the previous editions. I've been around that long. So we want to look at PRINCE2. We also want to look at our consultancy offerings. So for those of you who don't know that we offer consultancy, we do. We've been doing it for a long time. We just primarily push training. Push training. We advertise our training offerings. And hopefully people come on the courses and enjoy their newfound knowledge and can apply it. So I want to talk about consultancy. I want to also talk about SIAM. And the reason for that is we've seen an increased interest in SIAM over the last few years. I've been asked a number of questions about what's the difference between SIAM and supplier management. So want to cover that. And want to cover one of my favourite topics, which is problem management and root cause analysis, where we have a 2-day workshop. So they're the 4 areas we want to cover. And I think Ben has some questions he wants to hit me with over PRINCE2, some FAQs.
Yeah, so I think if we start by looking at PRINCE2, so I think it's safe to assume there are probably going to be people listening that have maybe even never heard of it. So I think to begin with, at a high level, what is PRINCE2?
PRINCE2 is a project management methodology. It's been around for over 30 years now. So I remember it in the early 90s. It derived from something called PROMPT, which was developed by the UK government. And PRINCE2 was developed by the UK government and has gone through a number of iterations. So the latest iteration is version 7, and it's evolved and become more relevant at each iteration because things don't stand still, things aren't set in concrete. So it's had to develop and evolve. So the latest version is the 7th edition, which came out in September 2023.
Great. So testing my knowledge here, PRINCE2, projects in controlled environments. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So we're now on 7th edition. In terms of 7th edition to 6th edition, forgive me if I'm wrong, PRINCE2 is to be renewed 3 years?
Yeah, every 3 years.
So those that sort of live by and swear by PRINCE2, at some point they're going to have to go and make that transition from 6th edition to 7th edition, alongside those who have never taken it before and will be starting at 7th edition. What's sort of changed between 6th and 7th? Is it worth the upgrade if you're sort of not due that resit? And how fundamental is it to sort of a project manager to be making sure that they've got the current edition of PRINCE2?
It has changed. It's become more flexible, more agile, I suppose. Prince2's always sort of been seen as a waterfall approach, as opposed to an agile approach to project management. But PRINCE2 7th edition has become more agile, more relevant. So just to give you a few examples of what's changed. So we looked at, in Prince 6th edition, we looked at a number of approaches, and there's been 3 new approaches added. So there's a digital and data approach. So but because all projects nowadays, or majority of projects, are sort of digitally orientated, I probably should caveat that to say that Prince2 is applicable for any type of project. So if we're building a bridge, we could use Prince2. So it doesn't have to be focused on IT. But most projects nowadays have some data element, some digital element. So there's a digital and data approach. There's also a new commercial approach within Prince2, which is looking at procurement and contract management. And there's also a sustainability approach. So we all understand there's a major climate crisis. So any project is going to add to carbon footprint. So there's a sustainability element there within projects. So it's a consideration for every project. You know, whether we're building a bridge and using thousands of tons of concrete, you know, well, what's the carbon footprint there? Or we're using thousands of servers in a data center, then again, there is an impact on carbon footprint. So it only makes sense that to bring Prince2 up to date, that we actually add sustainability in there as part of the project. So there's some of the core changes. Prince2 was always seen as very document heavy. So previous version of Prince2, we had 26 management products that we're expected to produce. And that's now been shrunk down to 15. So that there's 15 now. Although some of those 26 are still relevant, still use the 26 or use what's relevant. That it's always been seen with a lot of people that Prince2 is very prescriptive. To some extent, it has to be because you want consistency, but it is adaptable. So I know lots of organisations that have their version of Prince2. It's a house standard. So it's adopt and adapt approach. What makes sense for your organisation, do that. I've sort of explained some of the recent changes.
Yeah, so I think one of the first things you mentioned there was it's a bit of a buzzword for anyone who is a project manager is agile. So in past experiences, I've sort of worked on the fringes of IT in data analysis, business analysis, and naturally sort of come across many project management professionals within the sort of roles that I've held previously. And you do notice quite a leniency towards agile methodologies. I personally have noticed it's rather favoured. So with the move towards agile sort of in the industry, does Prince2 still sort of hold that place in a project manager's toolkit?
Yeah, it does. With the 6th edition, we had what we probably call standard Prince2, 6th edition. And we also had Prince2 Agile, 6th edition, with foundation and the practitioner exam. With the 7th edition, we've just got this new version of Prince2, which is more agile, more flexible, more scalable. Whether people who own Prince2, whether they will bring out even more agile version, sort of PRINCE2 Agile on steroids. I don't know, because I think PRINCE2 7th edition probably covers all of the bases, and you can do, you can manage end-to-end project with PRINCE2, and you can have elements of it which are even more agile. So and so a bit of a mix and match. So personally, I don't think they'll bring out a PRINCE2 Agile 7th edition, but we'll wait and see.
So we do offer, of course, our own training on PRINCE2. So for those who are maybe interested, can you sort of let us know the training that we have available, and who should attend foundation versus practitioner courses? How will this benefit the roles of people who may be listening?
Right. There's PRINCE2 Foundation, PRINCE2 Practitioner. So Foundation, as it says, is the foundational elements of PRINCE2. So we cover all of the material at foundation level over 3 days. And that's really aimed at maybe people working in a project office, people who need to understand the basics of PRINCE2, people who work alongside project managers, so maybe business analysts, who don't actually need the practitioner level of knowledge. The practitioner level of knowledge really is focused on those hands-on PRINCE2 project managers. So that's the difference, really. The practitioner still covers the same material. It's just how it's applied. So there's one book that covers foundation and practitioner. Just the questions are drawn to sort of a more in-depth degree in the practitioner. So the foundation course, foundation exam, that is 60 questions over an hour, and the pass mark 60%. So score 36 out of 60, and you've nailed it. So it's a 60% pass mark, as opposed to the vast majority of HEITL courses, which are 65%. So to get that basic level of knowledge of foundation, 36 out of 60, that'll give you a pass. And you need to have passed PRINCE2 Foundation before you move on to practitioner. The practitioner is a little bit different in that it's 150 minutes, so 2.5 hours. There are 70 questions, and the pass mark is 42 out of 70. So for those of you who want to do the maths, that's still 60%. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist really to get a PRINCE2 qualification. Okay, there's a fair bit of leeway there. PRINCE2, I should have brought a book with me, but it's quite a hefty book, and you get an ebook as part of the course. And the exams are taken via a proctored online exam. So the same way that we do for all of the PeopleCert exams. So you choose when you want to take the exam. I'd suggest if you do the course of foundation or practitioner and you then want to take the exam, then do it within 2 weeks. Don't leave it for the full 12 months. The exam voucher lasts for 12 months. Well, if anyone is thinking of doing an exam, whether it's PRINCE2 or anything else, do it as soon as possible. Get in there quick, yeah, because the old grey cells do tend to evaporate a little bit for one reason or another. So so they're the two courses. There are alternatives to PRINCE2. So there's PMP from the Project Manager Institute. That qualification is primarily sort of done in the US. PRINCE2 is established, obviously came from the UK government, so it's the primary qualification in the UK, in vast amounts of Europe, Australia, New Zealand, India.
It's by far the most widely known. Having worked outside of project management for my entire life, it's the only one I'd have heard of in sort of previous roles.
Yeah, and PRINCE2 is even making inroads in the United States. So increasingly, we're seeing people showing interest from the US in PRINCE2.
Great. Okay, so PRINCE2 7th, worth it?
Yeah, and you do have to renew your Prince qualifications every 3 years. I think there's enough there to make it worthwhile doing. It does give you that agile feel now, and increasingly we operate in an agile world. So most definitely, I would advise it for any budding project manager or any project manager that wants to bring their qualifications up to date.
Great. Thanks for that, Steve. I really appreciate it. So for anyone who is interested, we'll leave a link to the course page in the show notes. So you'll be able to go on there, get current pricing, have a look at the overview of the syllabus, any FAQs, and also get in touch with us if you'd like to book or ask any further questions. And we'll include a couple of links for some other project management qualifications as well, so you can sort of decide for yourself which one's right for you, having heard what you've heard today. So I think if we're going to move on to the next topic, unless you have anything to add on PRINCE2.
For those who want to get into the detail of what's changed, there is a blog on our website.
Yes.
For PRINCE2 about what's changed. So yeah, want more details? It's there. One further clarification, our account managers can get that for you. And if you want to book, then you can either book directly online or contact one of the account managers.
Perfect. So I think if we put that one to bed and take a look at the next topic, I think I'm going to give you a chance to ramble on about something you're extremely passionate about. It's not politics, but would you like to take us through one of your most coveted skills and desires, which is problem management?
Right, problem management. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Ben. It does seem like politics to me sometimes. I suppose the thing to say is that if we don't solve problems, we keep fixing the same things over and over again, which is a lesson I learned 30 odd years ago when I first, definitely 30 odd years ago, I first managed a service desk or help desk back in those days. And we were fixing the same incidents over and over again. We weren't getting to the root cause of the problem. So I went away on a course, learned all about problem management, discovered that, again, not rocket science. It is relatively simple. And I put a process in place. We had 3 shift leaders at the time who worked part-time at our service desk, and they became my project managers. So we jointly put together a process, and we developed reactive and proactive problem management. Probably the first thing we noticed was, we discovered, is we can't look at every incident. Some incidents are one-off; they'll never recur, or we know exactly what caused it, and something's already been put in place to resolve it. But I increasingly see organisations that do incident management. They'll do major incident management, but they don't do the problem management. And it's, as I say, it's not rocket science to put problem management in place. So what we did was we developed a 2-day workshop on problem management and root cause analysis, where on day one, we look at problem management. So how do we identify problems? How do we then do what we call the problem control in terms of prioritizing, categorizing the problem? How do we identify workarounds? How do we get other people involved, the technical experts or the third parties? And then once we've got maybe a temporary workaround in place, then we move on to error control, where we manage the workarounds, quick fixes, and then look towards a permanent solution. So this might be something we go through quite rapidly, or it's something which, if we're involving Microsoft, for instance, it may be something that's going to take 6 months from an incident occurring to having a permanent resolution to it. No offense to Microsoft. So it's really putting a process in place which works for our organisation. But in the middle of the problem control element of the process, we have the root cause analysis. So, and there's lots of different techniques, and some of them have been around since the 1950s. So on the second day of the workshop, we look at lots of these root cause analysis techniques. You may have heard of some. Ishikawa, so fishbone diagramming, brainstorming, and there's different types of brainstorming. There's a number of techniques, 8Ds, which came out of the Ford Motor Company. So we can use the 8Ds, which is a structured approach to problem management, root cause analysis. There's Pareto analysis, Kepner-Trago. So we look at a lot of these techniques and introduce them. And we can go further with some of these techniques. So some organizations want a tailored problem management root cause analysis workshop, and we can do that as well. We can do it on site or do it virtually. Personally, I prefer on site. And we can use these different techniques and show how they work. And we've got worked examples that we can go through with the delegates. And it's trying to create knowledge, I suppose, in people in terms of their ability to be able to do these techniques, even some of the simple techniques like reversal. So reversal is, if you can't think what could have caused something to happen, flip it on its head. Think, how could you cause it to happen? Oh, that's easy. I could do this. I could do that. Right. It's probably one of those things there. And there's also, I think the thing with problem management is no blame. So developing a culture around no blame. So it's not, it's his fault or her fault. It's, we want to find out what went wrong. It could be someone's made a mistake, human error. Okay, how can we prevent that human error happening again? So there's lots of techniques we talk about. As I say, it can be highly tailored for different organizations. But the general one is an opportunity to come on a workshop and meet other people with probably similar problems in different industries, and the ability to discuss and play with some of these techniques.
So I did take a look at this course syllabus, and there's some really interesting stuff in there. And I think what I like the most about it is that, the skills that are in there are designed for a very unique purpose, but they're also very transferable.
Yeah.
And the course itself predominantly sits within an IT-based role, but it's applicable across almost every industry you could think of. So forgive me if I'm wrong, but I would say there's almost an infinite number of job roles this applies to. Within the IT space, it's something that a lot of people should be aware of. And even if it's not used directly in a day-to-day role, the transferable skills in there that can be applicable across most disciplines are quite vast.
Yeah. Well, we have one customer who's made the course mandatory. I think it's virtually every member of staff, or at least every team lead and manager. And those people are from marketing, sales, accounts, HR, engineering. So they're from lots of different backgrounds. But as you say, the technique's very transferable from one role to another. So once you've developed the ability to use these techniques, then it is transferable from one job to another.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna ride the segue off the back of that, and let's talk about transferable skills, consultancy offerings.
Right.
So consultancy is obviously something that Purple Griffon have offered for a long time. It's also something we would like to offer more of going forwards, and I know you've got some big plans on that, Steve. So I think now is a good time to take us through how we plan to improve our consultancy offerings, the sort of things that we're able to consult on, and what makes us different, what are the transferable skills we can give you, and how can that be then rolled out once we've sort of left the picture.
Right. Okay. Cheers, Matt. Regarding consultancy, it's something we've done for the last 20 years. We've been doing it alongside training. And that's because we've gone into organizations, done training, and the organization has then said, well, how do we actually implement this? Right. Okay. Yep. We can put someone on site, or we can have someone working remotely to either as an additional resource, or someone who's a mentor, or someone who can facilitate workshops, for things like ITIL process development. And that sort of grew then into things like baseline assessments and maturity assessment. So we can do maturity assessments against your IT service management capability, your project management capability, or assess you against the standard. So the most common one, which we do, is ISO 20000. So this the IT service management standard. So it's an ISO standard, and it says you must have these things in place if you want to achieve this ISO standard. And we take you through that, and we help you put the artifacts in place, or the processes and procedures in place, and we increase people's knowledge. We did an interesting one for one organisation that knew they had problems. It was after a post-merger, so two organisations had merged together, but they hadn't really. The IT departments hadn't really merged together. There were problems with the processes. They weren't applicable across the combined organisation. So we worked with them over 2 days as a continual improvement workshop. And we identified 128 improvements they could make over.
So a worthwhile exercise.
Oh, yeah. It triggered a new role in the organisation of continual improvement manager, who had to be in place to drive these improvements forward. And we had a little bit of fun at the end of it. We did a Dragon's Den. So the 4 teams of 3 people picked one of the improvements initiatives each, and pitched them to 4 managers who were going to sponsor these improvements. And that was really to kickstart this program of continual improvement off. So in terms of our consultancy offerings, we can put people in place who have the relevant skills and capability. So we can add resource where required with particular skills. We can do baseline assessment and gap analysis. If you're looking for improvement, whether it's quality improvement, performance improvement, with experts in all of these areas. Or if it's just kickstarting something, so kickstarting service management or quality improvements. So there's lots of areas So if you look at the consultancy page on our website, there's probably about, 15, 20 different types of offerings we've got there, but we can do a hell of a lot more than that. So it's something we're going to be pushing a lot more, because it's all very well people gaining the knowledge from attending the training courses, but they need to develop the skills and experience. And sitting alongside one of our consultants certainly helps organisations to do that, whether it's at a strategic level, a tactical, or an operational level.
Yeah, absolutely. And you say consultancy is something that we've been doing for roughly 20 years. That makes it sort of a key pillar to what we offer as an organisation. That kind of backs up the mantra that we've said before. Your success is our success. Would you say that is our unique selling point, aside from the wealth of experience when it comes to consultancy?
Yeah. We like to help people. The reason we set Purple Griffon up 22 years ago was we were fed up of the four of us that set the company up. We're fed up having to fix things over and over again. So it was like, let's train people how to get it right first time. And also the consultancy came along with that as well, helping people get it right. So, and initially it was sort of mentoring IT managers of how to implement service management, but it evolves from there.
There's sort of two natural sides to the same coin, I suppose, aren't there?
Yeah.
When you look at the whole sort of offering.
Yeah, we're not one of those companies that goes, right, okay, we've done the training, bye, and moves on to the next customer.
Yeah. Thanks for your money, here's your certificate.
Yeah, it's we like to do a good job, a professional job, and we like to see organisations succeed. So if we've gone in and done some training, we want to see that knowledge implemented in a way that makes a difference for the organisation. So there's clear benefits that can be seen from the training which is taking place, which then hopefully results in a long-term relationship. And we've got lots of customers we've had long-term relationships with, and they keep coming back time and time again. So that's really why we're sort of expanding out the consultancy offerings more and more, making more widely known that we do that alongside the training.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that all makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So I believe we have one more topic to cover today.
Yeah. So the topic is SIAM, Service Integration and Management.
This is not one of my stronger points, so I will let you lead on this, Steve.
Right. Service integration and management. It's been around a while now, probably 10 years or more. So it was developed by Scopism. So a lady called Claire Agata, and hopefully we can get Claire on one of our podcasts sometime in the future, maybe to go into a bit more detail about SIAM. But we were asked a question from a customer that has their problems with supplier management, and they saw that we did the supplier management, the ITIL practitioner supplier management course, so the one-day course. But the way they were describing that problem sort of led me more towards the SIAM approach, so service integration and management. So I explained the difference between supplier management and SIAM. And SIAM is a framework. So it's about how you structure and organize your resources so that you better manage your supply chain. So it's applicable to service managers, it's applicable to people working in contract management, procurement, and it's trying to get organizations to look at their suppliers, because increasingly we have an increasing number of suppliers in every organization. the days of doing everything in-house have long gone. That's where I started off 40 years ago. We did all our development in-house, testing everything in-house. And we probably would have built our computers in-house as well if we'd had the capability. So, but yeah, if it wasn't developed in-house, it was no good. But times have moved on. So increasingly organizations have hundreds, maybe thousands of suppliers. So SIAM is a framework of how you manage that resource. So we, not to give too much about the course away, we explain to people how it's layered. So in terms of the customer layer, your integration layer, your partner and supplier layer. We look at different models. So where the integration layer is outsourced, so it's managed externally, or insourced, or hybrid, and it makes sense sometimes to have some hybrid approach, or one of your lead suppliers acts as the integrator and manages all of the other suppliers as part of that. So that's the course. There's a 3-day foundation course. There's also a practitioner course. I would suggest going on the foundation level because that gives you all of the options. And so if an organization is looking to develop this integration layer, if they've got thousands of suppliers which they can't manage in a consistent way, then looking at SIAM is a no-brainer, really. And it operates at a sort of again, strategic, tactical, operational level. We discuss what resources should be retained in-house, what capabilities are retained in-house. So just going back to problem management, talking to one organization, they retained problem management and change management in-house. They wanted those areas to be managed within the current retained capability. Everything else they were willing to outsource or have a third party, which was actually their lead supplier, to manage those resources. And for that organization, great, it worked. It works fine for them. Another of our customers had an external, again, lead supplier, integrator, and they decided to move everything back in-house. So the integration layer is now managed by an internal team. So they were doing SIAM, but it wasn't working for them. So it was a case of revisiting some of the basic concepts and seeing what would work for them. So
yeah, so it's really pivotal to those job roles then. The knowledge in there seems to be a really good sort of framework for, for getting those operations and those suppliers in a place that best fits your business.
Yeah. And I'm actually running the course in a couple of weeks' time. So for one customer, and it's something we're seeing increased interest in. So we do see some courses sort of go up and down. So we saw a huge drop in business analyst training, and that's gone. That's taken off again. With architecture courses, that took a nosedive. That's picked up again. And SIAM's one of those as well, where there was less interest. There's now more interest. What's triggered the interest? I don't know. Whether it's threat of a recession or people just overwhelmed with the number of suppliers they've now got. So yeah, I'm not sure what's actually triggered it, but I'm glad to say there is a renewed interest in SIAM. So we will be again. That's one of the courses we'll probably be promoting more heavily. Explaining, what the benefits are of attending SIAM training. And as I said, hopefully you can get clear on at some stage 15 minutes on maybe a future podcast to explain a bit more clearly than I can. Machines instrumental in developing it.
Well, hopefully there's plenty of people listening that like the sound of that. They like the sound of SIAM, and they'd like to know more about it. So, yeah, I think that's definitely one for us to run down. And, anyone that is listening that has liked the sound of it, like everything we discussed today, I'll make sure that the link's in the show notes, so you can follow up with us or, look at it at your own leisure. I'm sure amongst the thousands of pieces of copy on our website, there is probably also a SIAM blog on there somewhere as well.
I bet there is.
So let's, we'll have a dig, and if there's any other resources we've got, we'll make sure those are in there as well.
Yeah. Well,
great.
Okay.
So I think that will about wrap us up, unless there's anything else you'd like to bring to the table, Steve?
I don't think so, other than I hope these podcasts are useful for people. If there's any areas which people think that we should spend 5 or 10 minutes discussing, then please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, make use of the comments.
Yeah. It's
our sort of audience throughout this will be split between those that listen and those that watch. For those that watch, you will notice the format is slightly different this week. So me and Steve are doing this virtually as opposed to in the office. So one of the things we want to do with this is to bring an interactive element to it, and kind of walking that line between what benefits both audiences and not just those visually. And so things that you'd like to see, understand, know about, topics you'd like covered, let us know. Get in touch in the comments or give us an email. Essentially what we're trying to do is to bring the most value to you as possible, whilst letting you know about all these courses and how you can benefit your team, your career. So yeah, let us know. Otherwise, I think we have another episode coming in roughly a fortnight. Steve, can you remember off the top of your head any topics that people can look forward to?
I can't remember.
That's not me either. So yeah,
I know.
Cliffhanger.
I know there are definitely 4 topics that we would discuss on the next one.
Yeah, there's a nice cliffhanger for these people with, I guess.
Right, nice one.
Come back in a fortnight for God knows what.
Right. Okay, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
See you in the next one.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye.